Brand new enemies were intended to appear in Episode 3. As seen in the TF2 update for the 2013 version of the Source SDK, an up-armored Combine soldier was one of these enemies. It appears these armored pieces would be added on as extra models to the soldier's body, likely with the intent that they could break off when damaged. There is also going to be a new scanner variant called the Weapon Scanner. As the name suggests, it appears that the scanner would fire some sort of weapon, instead of solely possessing a camera. This doesn't appear to be an energy weapon, as inaccuracy values are coded into it. A completely different enemy was tested for Episode 3, which the 20th anniversary documentary highlights.
I remember the little blobby, squishy.
Oh yeah, Brian was
guys,
working on the blobs. So we had the ISO surfaces that we ended up using in Portal for the paint. So we had that as an enemy. It was a blob enemy, and it could change its shape, and you could choreograph its shapes with some content tools. And then it could also split into little hoppy blobs that could, they were almost like little head crabby things, but they were little splats that would hop around. And we were doing all kinds of stuff with that. It could pass through grates.
You could get more gameplay out of something where you had maybe a couple of creatures with simpler behaviors.
Oh yeah.
And then you would spend time combining them with other game mechanics.
While they tested the blob in Ravenholm and some other custom test maps, the most noteworthy testing location was a slightly modified version of the hallway seen in Dr. Mossman's message in Episode 1 and 2. Outside of lighting changes, an additional vent was added, and some of the damaged wall was repaired. At the end of Half-Life Alyx, the G-Man will reveal a previous hire of his.
A previous hire has been unable or unwilling to perform the tasks laid before him. We have struggled to find a suitable replacement until now.
No! I just want to go home!
The animation used in this sequence is this one, called Get Up Short. But there are other unused animations for Gordon, including a full version of the Get Up animation. Since the short version is the only one that made it into the game, it's the only one with attached sounds to it. Another one is Gordon Corner Idle, where he is struggling on the ground. It's looping, suggesting whatever sequence it was used for was to feature player interaction with the player able to stall. There's also a longer sequence based on this called Gordon Previous Hire End. Given the length of some of these animations, this suggests that more of Gordon was to be seen through Alyx's eyes. And given the name Previous Hire End, this long animation was likely the capstone to G-Man's discussion about Gordon with Alyx. At the end of Half-Life 2's E3 2003 demo, the camera flies through a sequence of images before coming up to G-Man himself.
Well, well, isn't this just like old times?
These images made it into the 2003 beta build, meaning we can look at them in detail. They actually originate from an unused concept map created in the years before this demo.
Cleverly done, Mr. Freeman, but you're not supposed to be here. As a matter of fact, you're not. Get back where you belong and forget about all this.
These images feature many subjects. You have several images of the cut enemy known as the Hydra. This image of bright spots with some color. These ethereal images of G-Man. The horse statue from the final Uprising map before going into the Citadel. Stalkers and Striders. And several ghostly images of characters including G-Man, Alex, Eli, and Barney. One image of an iris actually had a smaller, lower resolution version in the original map. There's also a math equation which is named Calabi in the files, suggesting that this is the Calabi conjecture, a real equation referenced in both the 2003 version of Black Mesa East and the retail version.
We're closing in on a reliable local teleport technology, something the Combine still hasn't mastered. Now, Eli thinks their portals are string-based, similar to our Calabi-Yau model, but they failed to factor in dark energy equations. Eli thinks their portals are string-based, similar to our Calabi-Yau model, but they failed to factor in the dark energy equations.
Finally, there's a string of text named in the files G-text, which possibly means G-Man text. The text appears to be some sort of medical commentary about Gordon Freeman specifically. If this is supposed to be text from G-Man, then it would suggest he was intended to have more connections to human known science than previously thought. Throughout Half-Life 2, you can spot this series of posters. One of them is of a colored image of a skyscraper in the middle of a city. Here's the original uncolored version of the image. This specific drawing was created by Valve artist Eric Kirchmer. This cityscape appears to be roughly based on the Central District in Hong Kong. The large blue skyscraper appears to be based on the HSBC main building, while the smaller domed building is based on the Court of Final Appeal. Although we don't have a reference photo for this image, we can tell that the perspective is from the Hong Kong Club building, or what is now called the AIA Central building. Hong Kong would later get a full name drop in Half-Life Alyx in the newspaper The Terminal. There, it mentions that Hong Kong Stock Exchange was shuttered following the 7-Hour War, like most other exchanges worldwide. Team Fortress 2, like all Source 1 era Valve games, uses 3D skyboxes for its maps. As seen here on 2.4, it is essentially a small area blown up to massive proportions beyond the limits of the playable area. The giant hole you see there is the reserved space for the map itself, so nothing conflicts. This presents an interesting problem for Well.
We build our 3D skyboxes at 1/16 scale to reduce the memory used by the large spaces in them. This means that we have to get a little tricky when dealing with trains moving between the skybox and the player space. There are actually two versions of each moving train, a player-scaled one for the actual gameplay space, and a tiny one out in the skybox. The small repair sheds on either side of the middle building disguise the point at which we swap between the two trains.
Here's the train moving in the skybox. When the skybox model reaches the edge of the hole reserved for the map, it is instantly teleported to the other edge, and waits until the play-space train leaves the map. The model swapping system works for the train going in either direction. The train stopping and teleporting at the edge works in either direction as well. Despite the modifications to the Capture the Flag version of Well, the train still works the same way. Cache has been released for Counter-Strike 2. The map is set near the foot of the ruined Chernobyl power plant. T-spawn is the closest point in the map to the plant itself. Because of all this, you can find a dosimeter in the back sitting on concrete blocks. If you stand incredibly close to it, you can hear it go off with a bit of extra radioactive crackle along with it. This appears to be the same Geiger counter sound effect used in Half-Life 2. At the time of this short's release, you won't hear it when you first spawn. You must walk up to where the soundscape starts, then it will start playing. If you look at the dosimeter itself, there's a panel on it. The panel is actually in Polish, and if translated, describes how the device works. In Portal 2, when paint is in the air, it is in the form of a blob of liquid. Olivier Nellet describes work on these blobs.
The first implementation of the blob was integrated in the Source engine back in 2007. Over the years, the code has been significantly optimized, but was still way too slow to run on game consoles. The blob was a key feature of Portal 2, even though we didn't know if we could make it work for consoles. In summer 2010, we were still considering using a completely different tech for consoles, one that would certainly not look as nice. On the 360, even with a very low quality blob, we were barely within a performance budget. But we really wanted to have the same high quality blob among all platforms. Meanwhile, the code was poorly suited for PS3 SPU. We ended up writing all the blob code, so it would take better advantage of multiple cores on SPUs, giving us quality blobs on all platforms while staying within performance and memory constraints.
That initial work in 2007 on blob tech that was mentioned was actually for an enemy in Half-Life 2 Episode 3, as revealed in the Half-Life 2 20th anniversary documentary.
The blobs. So we had the ISO surfaces that we ended up using in Portal for the paint. So we had that as an enemy. It was a blob enemy, and it could change its shape, and you could choreograph its shapes with some content tools. And then it could also split into little hoppy blobs that could, they were almost like little head crabby things, but they were little splats that would hop around. And we were doing all kinds of stuff with that. It could pass through grates.
The blob enemy being able to move through grates was something that was also inherited by the Portal paint. In the first chapter of Dead Center, you get a view of the Savannah, Georgia area from the upper floors of the Vanna Hotel. While the area immediately around the hotel is brushwork and props, the areas beyond this is just two props. One of them is a series of concentric rings of flat images depicting the city. While the vanilla texture for this prop is composed of cut-up city images with added haze, Left 4 Dead 2's files actually include several more versions. These variations appear to show the development of the final texture. Going backwards through that development, there's one variation you can find which is most of the same cut-up textures, but with slightly less haze. There's another set where the haze is completely gone, then you see all the finer details of the images. It's possible these images were meant to be used in a scenario where the haze was solely generated through the map, or there was no intended haze. Then there is a complete set of landscape shots showing most of the pieces together in order, with some hazing at the bottom. It's likely these textures were supposed to be used in a singular, circular set of brushes surrounding the map and the skybox, rather than concentric rings with the final prop. Finally, there is this set of nearly complete textures, with only PNG cuts made, showing the most intact versions of these images, including loads of details that weren't in the final sets of smaller pictures.